Yay for technology. Welcome everyone back to my 32 fan series where I'm talking to 32 fans from each of the lovely 32 NFL teams. And today we're talking all about the Colts. I'm super excited for this. If this is the first episode that you're seeing, there are many episodes to either follow or that will follow or that have come before this one. So just FYI. And then before Cody introduces himself, all of his information will be in the description below, or in the description below. So you can find all of his YouTube channel, Instagram, wherever he's located. I will put all of those items there, so you do not have to look very far. Now, having said that, Cody, if you want to introduce yourself, let us know who you are, whatever it is you want to tell us, and more specifically, how long you've been a Colts fan.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I know we did it last year, and so it's always a blast to be able to check in a year later and everything. But yeah, I do Bring the Juice. Been doing that, covering the Colts, and we do some other stuff. We cover Pacers and some other, Indiana-based teams, but really started with the Colts. And so been doing that since 2019, but really been a fan since I was young. I think one of my first memories was AFC Championship game. So that was 07, beginning of 07. So it's been a while since I've been a fan. I actually didn't grow up as a fan and kind of got my whole family into it. So it's kind of cool how that worked out. I played football as a kid, and so kind of was like gravitating towards Peyton Manning and some of those teams that were always right there every year. So that's kind of how it started. And then, as I got older, I kept following the team, and really, I think 2009 was when I really became like diehard. Like I would watch every game and all that. And then, from there, just kept doing it through middle school and high school. And then once I got to college and a little bit end of high school, I was like, hey, I really enjoy talking about football and about, I play it. I've grown up with it my whole life. I might as well, start giving my thoughts and putting my thoughts out there. And so kind of started with just more on the writing side of things, just with different articles and things like that. And then really, I think after I post-college, I kind of was like, well, I'm a visual processor. So for me, that was something that, like, for example, if I have a situation, I always have to call people and just like talk through it and just work through it in my mind to get it to like fully process. And so I'm like, as much as I enjoy this journalism side of things, I really want to, try to just voice my thoughts on the team. And so that's kind of the inspiration. And so, I started that at the beginning of 2019. And then from there, I've just been very fortunate and very blessed to have a lot of people who actually care what I have to say, which is just like incredible. And I often wonder like how, but I've been really grateful for that. And it's become just a nice, fun escape, from everyday life and everything, even if the team's not always has a lot to look forward to at times and can frustrate fans, especially the Colts right now. So, overall, that's kind of my story and how I became a fan, and then how I kind of took that fandom to give my thoughts. And it's kind of crazy how it's been that long already. It's, going on 7 years.
And I can tell you just because I always tell people, like, before I connect with people, I usually like watch their content. Some people I watch like 10 videos, some people it's like 3 videos in 2 seconds. I'm like, oh yes. And for me, it's just easily digestible. Even if I'm not a fan of your team, I can usually listen to you and try to figure out like what you think is going on, just because it seems very, very easy to follow. And I like that as a football fan, because it's like I can check into certain people and kind of figure out what they're thinking about their teams. And especially we played the Colts this year. So I remember just thinking like I knew where I could go to just get like information that I needed. So anyways, that's what I like about listening to you, and even watching your Instagram, watching the things that come out. I'm like, oh, okay, I can understand this. This makes sense to me. So I personally love that. That's awesome. So how are you feeling right now as a Colts fan? I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like last season, there was a whole plan. You went into the season, and then it's like, it just kind of didn't work. Anthony Richardson, whatever, drafting, trading the draft picks, all of the things that are happening with the Colts right now. How are you feeling? If you like this video, now is a perfect time to take a second and hit that like button and leave us a comment in the comment section below.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans, I think we're at this point where we're like, I just feel like the people who are in charge, it just seems like their days are numbered. And I think a lot of fans were pretty upset after the new owners, Jim Irsay's daughters, Carly Irsay Gordon and all the girls, they elected to keep them around for another year. And, it's been over a decade. They haven't won the division. They haven't won in Jacksonville since I was in high school. Like there's just like all these things they haven't done very well. And it's becoming a point where it's like, are we just okay with mediocrity? Are we okay just kind of being good enough?
Yeah.
And even though there was the strong start that happened where the Colts were one of the best, teams in the NFL at one point, that evaporated quickly and it still turned into a losing season after all that. Yeah. So a lot of fans are just kind of like, are we really going to bet on what the first half of the season told us versus what the second half of the season told us, which is more of the same, what we've been used to for the last couple of years. Right. So I think that's kind of where a lot of Colts fans are. They're kind of just biding their time till, eventually, hopefully that happens. Maybe this next
Something
year.
happens, yeah.
I think that's kind of where a lot of fans are, but I think some fans were pleased with the draft. I'm sure we'll get into that later, but a lot of fans were pleased with what the Colts got. And I think in a lot of ways, the Colts address a lot of their needs, but it just seems like with how the current regime handles things in terms of adding talent, sometimes it's frustrating because it seems like this team has talented players, but they don't do everything necessary like some of the best teams in order to, be the best. And so that's what's frustrating about it. And it's kind of like last offseason was kind of an anomaly because the Colts actually went out and they spent money. We're like, okay, are they turning a new leaf? And then Chris Ballard does the same exact thing he's done for the last 10 years. He goes bargain shopping. Right. And so it's just like, how do we expect to be competitive if we're just routinely going after B, C level players? Not that they can't work out and be better than, initially thought, but it just seems like sometimes you gotta do what's uncomfortable and what you're not used to, I think, in order to get to the place where you need to be. And it just seems like the Colts routinely haven't done that under Chris Ballard in this current regime. So I think that's kind of where Colts fans are right now. They're just kind of ready for a change. And it just kind of seems like we're content being in the middle right now, which is just really frustrating for all the fans who give their heart and soul and care about this team and this organization. So I think that's in a nutshell where fans are.
How you feel? Okay. If you could use one word to describe the draft, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think if I had to use one word, I would probably say, like, I don't know if the word accomplish is the right word, but some word within that where this class was different in the fact that the Colts didn't just go get a bunch of guys who were talented freaks like they've done in the past, right? These guys that are physical specimens. They went out and got guys that were productive in college. And that was a stark difference from what they've done in the past. I mean, goodness, you can look at that 2023 class. It was all potential. And it was one of the worst classes we've seen in quite some time from where the Colts were drafting versus what they got out of it. And so it kind of seems like, honestly, after that class in 2024, something shifted for the Colts in their draft philosophy. It seems like, I mean, they took Leatu Latu that year, who's one of the best statistical pass rushers coming out of the draft, probably the best. He's only improved in his first 2 years. Last year, Tyler Warren, that speaks for itself, what he did at Penn State and just, didn't miss a beat as a rookie. And then this year with CJ Allen, same deal. I mean, really the first 2 picks the Colts had, both guys that were first team all SEC that you think will come in and certainly, if not start, both of them start, certainly contribute in a major way. So that is something that I think I would look at for the Colts is they didn't just get guys that had talent. They got guys that had talent and also were successful at the highest level of football. And I think that's something that hasn't always been the case with this team. And they've tried to develop guys and it hasn't really worked out in their favor a lot of times. But that's what I would say. Like the better drafts they've had is when they go and get guys who have proven that they can play football and that they can, produce when asked and called upon. So I would say that would kind of be whatever that word is. I think they're just a lot more of an accomplished class than it's been in years past. And it's not just rounds 2, 3. I mean, they were able to get guys throughout the course of this draft. I mean, I think I only count one draft pick that wouldn't qualify this. So the large majority of their draft were guys that came in and produced. I mean, even day 3, Caden Curry, 11 sacks at Ohio State last year, 16 tackles for loss. And so many other guys, Seth McGowan, did some really good stuff, 12 touchdowns at Kentucky. So they went to the SEC in these bigger programs and more accomplished programs. And they were able to get some really good key players for those respective teams last year. So, that's what I would say.
Yeah. So staying there, is there a day 2 or day 3 pick where you're like, this could be a steal? Like this
Yeah.
perfect. Like yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah. I mean, I really feel like for most of their picks, a lot of people called them steals. Like they're like, how is this
Okay.
player still here? I mean, CJ Allen obviously is a big one because people thought he was going to be a fringe first round pick. And the Colts not
Hmm.
only traded back and got a fourth round pick, but they got a player like CJ Allen, who's on one of the best defenses and one of the best programs in college football. And he's been, the green dot guy for the last couple of years. So I would say him.
Okay.
Probably day 3. The guy that everybody is raving about is Deion Burks, the wide receiver from Oklahoma.
Fair.
I have no idea how he felt around 7. Nobody seems to know how he fell. I mean, this is a guy that, was ultra productive, especially at his time in Purdue, and, was a leading receiver last year. And it felt like he kind of was given a disservice with how Oklahoma ran their offense at times last year.
100%.
From what I understand, I didn't watch, a lot of tape.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
That and his quarterback play.
Yes.
His quarterback play didn't really help him as a player. And so, but yeah, I that's a good, I do think he was a steal for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he was the guy that I wanted in round 4, round 5. Like I was like,
Yeah.
please get him. And I even saw people going as early as round 3 or round 2 at times. So it's kind of wild to me. But he's a guy that I think factors in not just in the slot. Cause I know when the Colts took him, a lot of people are like, well, what does this mean for Josh Downs? But I think a lot of people missed out that maybe not as much as Oklahoma, but apparently at Purdue, they played him a lot on the outside. So he definitely has, reps there. So I think he definitely could factor in, if not just in special teams as a rookie, because I think the Colts are planning, because why not? I mean, look at the speed, the burst, all that stuff, get the ball in his hands and watch things happen. But I think he has a chance to go out there and contribute from day one, which is not something you typically say about 7th round picks. So,
Right.
yeah, I think Deion Burks, when you look at the testing, I mean, it's off the charts, like the speed, burst, and the strength that he has, like I think 26 reps of 225. I mean, that's unheard of for a player of his size. I mean, there's players that are, 20, 30 pounds heavier than him that don't even come close to that. So it's pretty wild to me that they got that combination of skills in Deion Burks in round 7. But I mean, as Chris Ballard said, that's our gain, right? So hopefully that does pan out, because I think he just has so much talent. And the Colts, frankly, I mean, Alec Pierce, he is what he is. He's a great downfield guy, led the NFL in yards per catch the last 2 years. But the Colts, I feel like they didn't really have a player on offense outside of Pierce that you could just put the ball in their hands, outside of JT, obviously, but from a passing standpoint, put the ball in their hands and they could break it any given time they touch the football. I feel like they lacked that last year. Michael Pittman Jr., good player, but I don't think he was near the player. He's not near the player athletically as Deion Burks is. So
no, not close.
I would say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Respectfully.
Yeah. Respectfully. Love
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a team that your player passed on multiple times that you think will come back to haunt you? Like the player that you were kind of hoping that they would get and they just didn't get them?
Yeah. I think one player, and hopefully the Deion Burks situation, figures itself out, but I was really hoping for Skylar Bell a little bit in the mid rounds. I've just heard a lot of good things about him. And I know I think he had that injury. But I mean, just a really productive player in college. And that was one position I was surprised the Colts waited till day 3, round 7 to go address. So I think he could definitely be a guy that I could see potentially there. Really just anybody in that round 5 where the Colts took George Gums. Like he could turn into a great player, but to me, he's more of that trait C developmental guy. And I was kind of hoping the Colts would take a corner personally. Now I don't even remember who was on the clock at that point, but I wonder, especially with how the cornerback room was banged up last year, if that's something that will come back to bite the team if they don't do anything in free agency, especially if Kenny Moore gets shipped off here in the next couple of weeks. You're really relying upon 2 starting corners who were injured a lot last year in Sauce and Charvarius Ward. Justin Wally's coming off, the major injury. I think it was an ACL or Achilles injury last year before in training camp. And then Cam Taylor-Britt, who was one of the worst corners in football last year. So there's the ceiling is very high for this group, but also the floor could be very low because of some of the injuries. So I definitely would have, if I was making the call, I definitely would have made it a priority to address corner at some point in the draft. just because I think you can never have enough depth at corner. And the Colts were having to rely upon guys that were coming off the street last year at one point. So I just think that it was a mistake. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was a mistake for the Colts to just not really address that at all. So I probably would have liked to see them do that in the draft.
Okay. So looking at the team, now that the draft is over, free agency is happening, I think we're all collectively kind of waiting for the June 1st designation just to kind of see what happens and what that really means. But as a team stands right now, what do you think success would look like this season? Like what is that thing where you're like, okay, at the end of the year, at least if we do this, then we will have been successful. Maybe not where we want to be, but that is still a success.
Yeah. So are you talking just like no moves, just where the team is currently?
Yeah, just where the team is at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you would say offensively, Daniel Jones fully recovers from that, injury, that Achilles injury,
Yeah.
and then is the player that he was the first half of the season versus the last game or two, where there was a lot more turnovers, there was a lot more issues going on. You hope that he can get back to that form and obviously stay healthy as well. I think that would be very, very good if he can play at that high level, fringe top 10 quarterback play. I think you feel really good about where your quarterback situation is. And then I would say defensively, outside of health, I would say the development of your young, players on defense, your second year guys, I think would be huge for you. I mean, Justin Wally, if he can stay healthy, he can be that slot into that nickel guy for where Kenny Moore has, occupied for the last number of years. And then JT Tuimuluau, Jalen Tuimuluau, he likes to be called now. If he can develop into something and can provide you some really good pass rush, reps, I think that would go a long way because he didn't really factor in last year. He was buried in the depth chart behind multiple players who I personally felt like weren't super effective for the team last year. And I was kind of, baffled at why he didn't get more opportunities. So I would say for those standpoints, I think if those things happened, you got good return on your investment in some of the things that you invested in the last couple of years with Daniel Jones. And then with some of your young defensive players, I think I would count that as a big success.
How is Daniel Jones doing right now in his progress? Is he slated to be ready to go week 1 or how?
That's the plan right now.
Okay.
One thing I've learned with the Colts is they don't really give a lot of info. They'll kind of get a general idea, but I think a lot of fans are like, we don't necessarily trust the Colts at times with their evaluations because it hasn't always gone well for us in the past. So, but yeah, from what I understand, he's currently throwing, moving, doing all that stuff. They didn't necessarily set a timeline on that, but I think the goal is week 1 for sure. I mean, obviously, you'd love for him to be available before that. You'd love for him to get a little bit of time to knock off the rust and everything. But I think that's the plan right now. But I don't love the no timeline thing. I'm like, just give us a kind of a hard date to ease us a little bit into that. So
yeah, and at least a ballpark, just so you can kind of set your mind with like, okay, then I can check back in at said date. It's almost I understand that. This is random. When I was a kid, I was like, are we there yet? And I was like, can you just give me the number on the clock I should look for? And so it was like, if it was 4 and they said 6, I would shut up until I saw it get to 6. So it's like, can you just tell me like what's coming so that I can prepare myself? So I respect that. Which position group worries you the most at this point?
I would go back to that edge position. I mean, right now, Leatu Latu, he's been a really good player for you. I think this is I think this is a pivotal year for him to kind of prove like, okay, is he going to be in the upper echelon of pass rushers? Because 8.5, going from 4 to 8.5 sacks, more pressures, all that stuff, that was great. But it still felt like there was more that Latu could get to. And so can he be in that 10 to 12 range or more? If he can start to do that, I think that's great. But I'm really worried about that second defensive end position because, like I said, Tuimuluau, you'd like for him to take that over, but he barely played last year. And I think he has the talent to do it. Certainly, he was a second-round pick, but I don't know right now. It's hard to just completely trust that he's just going to jump into that flaw, completely seamlessly. So I would say edge. I mean, they signed a couple players, Arden Key, Michael Clemens, but to me, they're more depth guys. They drafted a few guys in, the late rounds, but I don't know if they're going to necessarily factor into actual reps on defense. So I still would like to see them go out and get a veteran guy. My top guy is probably Jadeveon Clowney. Honestly, I think he played really well with Baltimore last year. I know he's a little bit older, but to get a vet out there and not put that all on the plate of Tui Muluau, I think would be a wise choice for the Colts. Because they just haven't had a consistent pass rush, honestly, since Robert Mathis back in like 2013. So it's been a minute. They've had a few individual guys that have done some good things, but they haven't had that elite pass rusher or a consistent pass rush. And I think that's why their defense has typically kind of been near the bottom half of the league, is because Chris Ballard has, not for a lack of trying, he has tried. He has drafted and signed and traded for guys, and it had a little bit of success, but overall, the return on investment has been majorly underwhelming. And I honestly think that's putting it lightly. Like, it's not been good at all. Latu's probably been the best one, honestly. So, it's been that bad for this team. And it's like the Colts, for whatever reason, with Chris Ballard, I think that's why a lot of fans, when, they were looking at the mock drafts, like, don't even draft an edge because he can't draft them. Now, I'm personally like, I get that, but also like, that doesn't mean you need to stop, trying, because you got to figure it out.
Yeah, you have to have
I would say edge rush for sure is the biggest.
Okay. It's always interesting. I think I might have said this on another episode. How like when we look at our teams, we already kind of know what position like we struggle with getting, and we know we can evaluate that position. And every team has that position where you're like, oh gosh, why do we do this? We can't draft linebackers. Like, we're not good at it. So that's funny. Is there a team, or where has this team improved this year? Like, where's somewhere that you're like, okay, since last season, I feel like this is the area we've really gotten better, or we're, working towards getting better maybe in certain situations? So what would you say that is?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think just the overall speed of your team, I think, is going to be on defense is going to be better. Your linebacker room was probably one of the slowest linebacker rooms in the NFL last year. You couldn't, it was just routine. Like, teams knew where to attack, and they would attack. They would attack the middle. They would attack your linebackers. You couldn't cover. Half the time your linebackers, couldn't get to spots they needed to. And so I think it was pretty obvious for a lot of people that they needed to just completely scrap and start over with that room in a lot of ways. And that's what they've done is, they traded away Zaire Franklin. They didn't re-sign Jermaine Pratt. So both their starters from last year aren't on the roster anymore. And then obviously they went out and they drafted CJ Allen. They drafted Bryce Betcher in round 4. They signed Akeem Davis-Dather, who's a solid linebacker, to their roster. So they've really kind of reshaped that whole unit and went for the youth movement there. Now, are they going to be better? I don't know if right away, but I certainly think that the issues that plagued this linebacker room last year aren't going to be as prevalent this year. Now, there's probably going to be some other things that aren't necessarily up to par where they were last year, but I would say, linebacker certainly would be the one. Really, the front 7 is where they've really tried to emphasize. And I think I still think there's a question mark at edge. I do think unquestionably they've gotten more depth at that, at both interior and the edge position, and guys who actually have capability to get after the passer a little bit. Now, will it be enough? We'll have to see. But I think just their front 7 was a big emphasis this year. And I think on paper, while I don't know if necessarily would say they've gotten like better in terms of star power, I do think they've definitely set themselves up well to have better success with their front 7 this year. And we'll see if it works out at the end of the day. But I would say if you're looking at any position group, it'd probably be linebacker out of everything.
Okay. What do you think your team will do better than any other team in the NFL, or the most teams in the NFL?
Well, I think their bread and butter will be running the football. I mean, you can't go wrong with Jonathan Taylor and what he did. And I think the Colts were a little frustrated with how they couldn't run the ball at the end of the year, where they had so much success to start the year, and then it just felt like it kind of went downhill. And I'm kind of curious where a guy like Jalen Farmer, who they drafted around 4, comes in, because if they feel like that's going on again, if there's other issues, could he potentially challenge for a starting spot? I wouldn't put it past him, especially at right guard with Matt Gonsalves. Had some up and down moments last year. He's still a young player, so he still can develop. But yeah, I think their emphasis will be running the ball. I mean, there's a reason why Jonathan Taylor is regarded as one of the best backs in football. Their offense runs through him, especially if your quarterback's, making his way back. And And they drafted Tyler Warren, who's really, really good in run blocking as well. So I definitely think the Colts will be a team that's right up there in rushing yards again, just because of JT. And hopefully they can spell him a little bit with some of the other guys on the roster. DJ Giddens didn't really get a lot of run last year, but in year 2, you're hopeful that he can take a step. They drafted Seth McGowan out of Kentucky in round 7. He had some legal trouble, so he fell in this draft. He's a little bit older of a prospect, but just as a pure talent standpoint, a lot of people saying he probably was better than the 7th round pick. I mean, like I said, 12 touchdowns last year at Kentucky, 4.5 yards per carry. So there's potentially something there. He's more of a power guy. So I could see him factoring in, but I would love to see the Colts kind of take some tread off the tires of Jonathan Taylor throughout the course of a 17-week season.
That'd be nice.
He's good. The offense is going to run through him no matter what. But
yeah.
You
said DJ Giddings from Kansas State?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I like it.
Yeah.
If the season started today, who would be the Colts quarterback? Who's the backup?
Probably. Well, yeah, that's a great question. So I wanted to say probably Riley Leonard, but I have no idea if Anthony Richardson's going to be on the roster or not at this point.
Oh, yeah.
I would say probably Leonard right now.
Okay.
Just because I think he played well enough at the end of the year as a 6th round rookie that you're like, okay, like he has the potential.
From Notre Dame?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he played pretty well. He had his moments, don't get me wrong, but he had an opportunity there. I think against Houston, and I know Houston at one point put in their backups later, but he definitely, against Houston's defense, that obviously we know probably the best defense in the NFL, he actually was slinging it. So I think he has a chance here to compete for quarterback too. So I would probably say Riley Leonard right now, but depending what happens with Anthony Richardson, he might be in there competing. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. Okay. So fun round is coming up next. And so I'll ask you these questions. I'm actually curious what you'll say about a couple of them because I'm not sure. But first one is your quarterback confidence from 1 to 5, 5 being the best and obviously 1 being like, please help us.
I would say I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm like 2.5 or 3 because the reason why I'm not higher is because of the injury with Daniel Jones. I mean, I think with Shane Steichen, Daniel Jones can be a really good quarterback. We saw that through the majority of the season. They're not going to ask him to be Superman and do all this stuff like maybe he was asked to do in New York at times. Just a better situation all the way around for Daniel Jones. But I think there is certainly question marks about his long-term health and was last year a fluke? I mean, that's a very valid question because there's been a lot of years where it hasn't looked good for Daniel Jones. But I would say 3 right now when it comes to that, because I think Daniel Jones, if he is healthy, he's fully ready to go, I think he's going to be just fine. But that's the big if, is he going to be ready? And if he is he going to last for 17 games again?
Yeah. Okay. And then coaching staff, trust level. How do you feel on a scale from 1 to 5?
Man, probably a 2 with the coaching staff. I mean, Shane Steichen, I think he's a really good offensive mind. But where I think he lacks is I think there's some day-to-day things that he needs. I just feel like I struggle with him at times because I feel like he's a good offensive mind, but I don't know if he's a guy that necessarily is holding guys accountable like they need to be held accountable. Or if he's calling things out the way he needs to, because I feel like this team is continuing to find ways to not win. And I'm like, at any point, like you can blame the GM all you want. There's very valid reasons for that. But I'm like, there's a common trend here of every time Shane Steichen's team has had an opportunity, they haven't come through in the clutch moments. I mean, all the way back from his rookie year, like I know the Colts overachieved a lot in a lot of ways in 23, but I mean, they didn't make the playoffs. They had a chance. They didn't do it. 24 was what it was. There was a lot of issues. There was a lot of opportunities and they kept blowing it. And then last year, starting off as good as they did, I know injuries are a thing, but they couldn't win 1 or 2 games the last half of the season. They kept finding ways to lose. It was just kind of crazy to me. I also will point to just his record against the division outside of the Tennessee Titans, who have, just picked number 1 overall a couple years ago when we're in the top, 5 again this year. It's not good. The record against Houston and Jacksonville is actually pretty abysmal. I think he's like 2-7 against them or something like that.
That's not great.
Whatever it would
Yeah.
be in the last couple of years. It's not good. And then one of those wins was against a backup quarterback. So it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good enough. The team hasn't won enough, and they certainly haven't beat the teams that are, they're competing with for that AFC South crown. So I would say that. Lou Anarumo, I know there were some issues last year. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see what it looks like with a fully healthy offseason with his guys in place a little bit more. So I'm willing to give him a little bit more credit, and obviously not being the head coach, you can just focus on the defense a little bit more. But I think there still are questions on why the team struggled so much defensively at times. Why they couldn't get a consistent pass rush, why they couldn't do a lot of these things. And so I would say right now, that's kind of where we are. I think Shane Steichen's on the hot seat this year. If the Colts continue to miss out on the postseason, I think there's a real good chance that he's no longer here after this season's end, maybe him and Chris Ballard. So, I would say 2 right now. I think that's where a lot of people are. Like, if you take Steichen, the play caller, I'm probably going higher than that. But as Steichen, the head coach, I'm a little bit lower on that.
Yeah. Okay, fair. Who do you think will carry the team this year, offense or defense?
Ooh, I think offense still will. I think the defense will hopefully do their part a little bit more at times. Now, again, it's so hard because you're like, offense contingent on everybody staying healthy. I think the offense will. But the defense still concerns me with the lack of pass rush consistently, and also the injuries. I mean, Charvarius Ward literally said, the other cornerback for the Colts, starting quarterback, he said, 1 more concussion and I'm done. So that's also scary, the fact that you don't know about the future at one of your cornerback spots there.
Yeah.
I think the defense certainly will be faster and more fun to watch, but I think the offense was the big reason why you were at the point you were last year. So I'm going to stick with the offense for now, just because I feel like you have more guys that you would say are the superstars there. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is what he is. Tyler Warren, really good rookie tight end last year. I think he's going to just get better. And then Alec Pierce with an expanded role with this team, I think will go a long way for them as well. He actually will be getting wide receiver 1, targets for the first time in his career. So what can he do with more opportunities? So I definitely will say, for sure, probably the offense for me.
Okay. If you could trade drafts with any team, which team would it be? And you can tell me why if you want to, or you can just say which team it is.
Yeah. So as I was kind of looking at this, I was kind of wondering, like, okay, what would be a team that goes and gets an edge rusher in round 1? Like that's what because of the need that they have.
Yeah.
I might say the New York Jets. The only just because, all those first round picks they had, they got multiple positions the Colts could have used. They got an edge, they got a wide receiver, they got a corner, they got an interior defensive line. The only one would be, Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, but I'm sure Steichen could find a way to use him too with that. So I'd probably say the Jets, because I feel like they got the best pure pass rusher in the draft, got the best tight end in the draft. They got a really underrated wide receiver in Cooper. And then they got D'Angelo Pons, who undersized a little bit, but he is a very good corner. And those all would fit outside of tight end Colts needs. So I'd probably go Jets.
I love that. And something just dawned on me, because did you watch Indiana this year make their run? Were you an Indiana fan as well? Okay.
Yeah,
I was just wondering.
I'm not necessarily a fan, but I definitely was watching. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, because at one point it was like Indiana could do no wrong in sports. It was like everything was just working. Okay. That just dawned on me. I love that. Okay. So if your team had this always happens moment, this is what we do. I don't even know why I even get excited, because I knew this is going to happen. What is that like for the Colts? What would be that?
Well, I think recently it's been, if there's any big moment, we will find a way to mess it up. Like we just will. Okay. And I think a lot of fans have just like, even when the team is good and we feel like things are going well, people in the back of their mind are like, well, something's going to happen. Like the Andrew Luck's going to retire out of nowhere, or, Daniel Jones is going to tear his Achilles. Like fans are just, I think at this point under this regime, they're just kind of used to disappointment, unfortunately. Okay. And so it's sad because, you know, it started off so well last year and fans were like, okay, maybe we're finally seeing some stuff come to fruition. And then it all fell apart again. So I would say routinely just losing in the big moments, or just everything that can go wrong will go wrong. I mean, players will get injured, you know, things won't work out the way that they need to. And it's kind of funny. It's like almost a polar opposite with the Indiana Pacers. Like the Pacers, yeah, obviously everything that happened with Halliburton awful, but I mean, the Pacers were able to have the year off and potentially get one of the best players in the draft with all these guys coming back. So it's kind of crazy, the stark difference between the two organizations right now. So yeah, I think Colts fans are just kind of used to disappointment and are ready for it at this point. And it just seems like since 2019 and that whole thing went down with Luck, it just seems like it's been one thing after the other with this team.
Yeah, that was weird. That was so weird. All of that was weird. To be honest with you, it still continues to be weird to me. Like I know I got to get over it, but I don't know, just feel, I don't know. It was just random. It was just random. But okay, so if you could send a message to the team's owner or the team's GM, I'll throw in the GM in there. What would you say? What would your message be to either one of them, whoever you pick?
Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, probably to the owner, because frankly, I'm kind of done with the GM. I think he's just too hard-headed. To the owner, I would say,
or owners, I guess I should say.
Owners,
they split it by thirds or whatever.
Yeah, I would say the one making the decisions, Carly. I'd probably say to her something along the lines of, like, you need, like, winning has to have, like, at some point you got to reward your fans, right? At some point you have to do the hard thing, even if you don't like to do it, even if it's gonna, you know, potentially mess up your personal relationship with the GM. You know, you like him, he's a good guy, all that stuff. But at some point, winning's got to matter. At some point, you got to tell the fans, we care about winning. We care about, you know, this organization was so highly regarded for so many years. We cared about winning. We cared about competing. Jim Irsay, for all his flaws he had, he cared. He really deeply cared about the fans, and he wanted to win. And I don't know, like, I just don't know the girls as well, but I would just say, like, don't lose sight of that. Like, because these fans, they work hard. They care about the team very deeply. Like, you know me, like I do it on a daily basis. Like, I talk about this team. We just want hope to know that things are going to change, and that you actually, you know, care about competing, seriously competing, and not just being good enough. That's what I'd probably say. Something along those lines.
That, you know what? And that was well said. Like, well said. Like, so many times we're like, oh, what would I say? You know, but no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate being able to chat with you about the Colts, and you just like agreeing to do this. It's always fun whenever I am able to connect with somebody the first time and then I follow back up with them like a year later. I just always think it's cool just to see. And I'm such a nerd. Like, I watch people's content and then I'll go watch our old, like, episode just to be like, what were we talking about then? And so a lot of it was like Anthony Richardson specific. And so it's funny though, a year later, it's like, hey, things have changed. So now we have to change as things have changed. So I just appreciate you like being willing to chat with me and taking the time. And I'll say again, and then I'll leave it up to you to say whatever you want, is all of your information will be in the description. So nobody has to go far. I will make sure that it's there and it's easy to find and all of those different things. So I will end on you, whatever you want to say, and then I'll hit end whenever you're done.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate you having me on. It's always a blast to just kind of talk about the team, because you can get so caught up in specific things that it's good to kind of take a step back and just look at this team from a 30,000 view, you know, kind of angle there. And so I appreciate that. And we'll just have to see. I'm very curious from a year from now where this organization will be. Are we going to still kind of be feeling like we're kind of in purgatory? You know, we're just like, it's not good, but it's not awful. And we're just kind of, that's almost like the worst place we can be, it feels like, as a football fan. Or are things going to change? Because like you said, we were talking about Anthony Richardson as a starting quarterback last year, and that's not even a thing anymore. Right. So a lot can change for sure. And I'm just so curious to see what this team looks like in a year from now, compared to where they are now. And hopefully the fan base gets rejuvenated, because there's a lot of fans who have kind of unfortunately checked out, and they're just kind of biding their time, like I said. So I'm hopeful that some new life and new energy will be here coming in 2027. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, I will say I like when a lot of teams are good, because I think it makes the league just better when every game is, you know, competitive and whatever. And so I hope they do figure it out. And I hope I don't know. And as a woman, I'll be honest, as a woman, I want them to succeed being owners too, because I
Mhm.
think that says a lot about like how, how women can do what they need to do,
Yeah,
but they are going to have to do what they need to do in order
right.
to be successful. So I'm watching from afar just because I'm just fascinated with the whole situation of like what is going to happen. And so
Yeah.
so we'll
I mean,
see.
it's interesting because, like, I think when you know somebody for over a decade, right, at this point,
It's hard.
and then you have to make the hard decision, I can't even imagine how difficult that would be.
Yeah.
So just from a personal standpoint, that's got to be so tough. But yeah, at the end of the day,
Business.
this isn't a friendship thing. It's a business. It really is, and it's no hard feelings, nothing personal, but it's got to happen. I mean, that's just a part
Yep.
of it, and people pay good money, to support this team, and
Exactly.
so you got to tell them, hey, we care about you, we see you, we hear you, and we want things to be better, and so that we're gonna do all we can to make it that way.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I love that, and we'll give you a good reference on your way out. Like,
yeah,
we'll
exactly.
talk great about you.
Yep.
Anyways, well, thank you, Cody. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you for having me on.
Of course.